Let's turn your hat around.
Oh, look at that.
My studio lighting.
Now I can see the top half of Dallas's head.
There you go. Hey, you shaved your face.
Yeah, check it out.
I did. I had to get rid of the Grizzly Adams.
Oh man, that was, dude. I was digging that on Wednesday, man. I was like, that's like he went full grizzly bear.
I saw that Dallas was becoming a Viking. We're live. We got 9 in here so far.
Are we live yet?
Yeah, we're live. Who we have in the house? We've got Clint Street Machines here. Dust Devil Brian here at the very beginning. That's I don't know what that is. That's like a what do you call that? A bellwether. It'll kind of tell you what's getting ready to happen. Kevin Bopar Scott's in here. Turbo Tom, Unfinished Project, Dart Sport. Buff's Garage is here.
Nice.
Mrs. Dust Devil, how you doing? 815 LSX Swaps. My Aunt Nancy's here. You know, she usually catches my Friday show.
That's good.
Auto Salvage Outlaws. Dust Devil says, what did I miss? Well, it depends what you're asking about. Simpson Speed Shop. How's it going, Joe Simpson? Wendy English is here. Yeah, so we have Professor P in the house on my channel tonight because we all have plans for PRI. So he is getting used to the way here where we spend a lot of time greeting people when they come in. That's just something we like to do on this channel.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, we do it for them. I could aggravate Professor P awful live, you know, so we get him cornered in here. Dallas has gotten used to it. He's just like, man. Brian Beeler, how's it going?
I'm trying to improve my studio. Like in the back of my Suburban.
Yeah, that's great. That is Dakota's Timeout's brother, Hunter. I call him Dakota's brother, and I've also started calling Dakota Hunter's brother. But he is a hopeful for No Name Nationals 2023. He's already working on his sub count.
Good.
And he's a Pontiac guy, smart guy, just like his brother. Looking forward to them coming out.
Well,
Drag Pack. What's that?
I don't know if you caught on our live on Wednesday, but there was like 3 people in there that I've never heard of before. They're all trying to figure out where to buy tickets for the No Name Nationals 2023.
They'll come available. Don't worry. You'll have plenty of opportunity. All right. Colleen Buff. Looks like everybody's here. LP94. That will be Lars. Lars was one of the monkey bike jockeys for Mr. Rodder's neighborhood at the No Name Nationals.
I still got to go pick up that monkey bike. I've been dragging my ass on it.
They're going to start hiding it like from the Repo Man or something. Well, we wanted to have a live because Dallas has made the executive decision that we all need to go and do some guerrilla marketing and such at PRI. And for those of you not familiar with PRI, it's a big trade show, the biggest automotive trade show in the world, I'd imagine. And there's a link to it below the video so you can see pictures and stuff. The thumbnail for this was a picture. I've never been. I know Dallas is an old pro, but
old pro. This will be my 3rd time.
He's an old pro. He's got it. I can call Dallas old. He's got a year on me, so I can call him old. But anyway, we just thought we would put that up since tell you what we're doing, and of course you guys will talk about whatever you want to talk about and we'll do whatever. But Professor P, have you been to PRI? How many times?
Absolutely. I got tired of going to SEMA. SEMA just turned into a car show. SEMA in the early 2000s was good, but then it just turned into this massive car show, and I just stopped going. It just wasn't my thing anymore.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yep.
Yeah, SEMA. You're right. SEMA is a car show. It's like the extreme end of the car show crowd.
Yes.
Right. So like the guys who really do have the factory Hemi cars with the perfect paint and all that good stuff, and the radiator antifreeze labels in the right spot, those guys drool over the SEMA stuff. It's just
that's correct.
It's kind of a step removed even farther from what most of us here do.
But what's funny about SEMA though is that you have the 2 extremes. You have those people that you just talked about, and then you have the people that have the booger welds, that they've painted over these welds that you look like just little globs.
Yes.
And they think that's cool, So there's 2 extremes there, and that's why I just stopped going to SEMA, because if someone can do that kind of fabrication and get in there, it's not for me.
We'll say hi to Ed's Machine, Don Mohawk 62, and Simpson's. This is cool. So his company will be there. Shockwave Motorsports have racing simulators that he did the fab work on.
Nice.
That's great. That's
Yeah,
great.
that is cool.
One of these days, Joey, we're going to get to meet you. I'm hoping that you'll come down for No Name Nationals in 2023. So, fuel's a little more palatable. So we hope to meet you. I know a lot of people would like to see you and that dart. He has by the way, if you're not familiar, he has a beautiful 68 dart. It's maroon, got a screaming small block, and he runs it on a 500-foot track that just closed, and he's going to go somewhere else now. Runs on a 500-foot track in Canada.
That's awesome. I think I watched this guy. Yeah. I do watch him.
Yeah.
I'm subscribed to him. Yeah, I dig it. I love his car.
Oh yeah, beautiful. Drives it on the street and on the track, and it's been one of those things just evolved. But super nice guy. I've had him on a live before. Hope we get to cross paths with him sometime.
It's awesome.
Well, you know what they say. Like you said, he's got a Barracuda, right?
Dart. He's got a 68 dart.
Oh! I thought you said 68 Barracuda. Well, and that's what I wanted to hear. See, they always used to say you're either a dart guy or a Barracuda guy or not a guy.
That's correct. Absolutely. And I'm telling you, 68 dart is the king of all darts, and that there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So 68 dart, he's cool in my book, right off the bat.
So Professor P, if you have a 68 dart 270 that's 55% B5 blue and 45% surface rust, and it's a factory 273 hypo car, that makes you cool, right?
Absolutely, because I think I have one in the garage. It's called the Desert Dart.
As do I.
Yeah, mine's actually a GT, GT.
Cool.
Yeah, mine was actually a 318. It had a 318 904 with a 7 1/4 rear end in it, and yeah, that's what mine is. But it's going to be something totally different now. But yes, you are cool in my book.
This one I'm still working on the whole lost title thing. It's one of those that's been languishing in backyards for decades, and and its last inspection sticker was 1973 Georgia.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a mess, but we'll get there. We'll get there with it. Dust Devil Garage says, what do you have to do to be able to get into PRI? And Colleen is asking a question there about AHRA if you want to go. So what is the latest situation?
If I had a booth, yes, you could easily go. The problem is PRI is no different than anyone else. Their prices have went up, and it's now like $1,800 for a booth, and that's outside of my budget. Way outside my budget. That I'll put it in perspective for you. That would be essentially 1/3 of what it costs to rent the track for No Name Nationals.
Well, a third of a base rental. It costs a lot more than that by the time you race, but regardless, it's a pile of money, and it's 20% more than it was last year.
Wow.
It's 20% increase. So at a time when everybody's fuel costs more, everybody's spending more on everything, lumber's higher, rent is higher, everything is higher, interest rates are higher, everything is higher. The booth rate goes up 20% more.
Wow.
So we're gonna just go it on foot, just like warriors, right?
We're gonna guerrilla warfare it, man.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's it.
So since I don't have a booth, we have to pay for each individual person because you all have to be a PRI affiliate to go to the thing. So that's the way that works. I can't afford to take everybody along because it would cost me pretty much everything that you paid in membership just to get you in.
But question, Dallas, if they want to pay their freight, which I believe is $40 per attendee, would that work? That's something we can figure out.
Probably so, I guess.
Deke, check it out. Deke's on here. The coolest 68 darts were 383 4-speed. Factory 915 heads and solid valve train. Yeah, cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were fast.
Destroyer looked into it as well. By the way, you can get a media pass with a bona fide automotive YouTube channel. That's how Clint got in.
Yeah, and I didn't do it that way. I went through the AHRA, but I could have probably just done it under everybody's channel.
Yeah.
And then that's serious guerrilla marketing right there. I don't even know if that's considered guerrilla. Maybe that's like chimpanzee marketing at that point.
Yeah,
I think that's called smart.
Yeah, there's a nuance. Clint says I paid $40 to join, and the media pass is free.
Perfect.
But I'll tell you, they get their money one way or the other.
Oh yeah.
I was reading into it like, oh yeah, these people get their money one way or the other.
As an FYI, that $40 wasn't there before.
Oh, so that's new.
Yeah, that $40 PRI join PRI group thing fee, that wasn't there previously.
Dust Devil Garage said the coolest darts were dusters.
Oh, well, and also maybe that's something I should probably bring up. I had to have the AHRA join the PRI so I could get the booth for $1,800, and it was $2,000 for me to join.
Yeah.
I'm like, F that, man. These guys are going to shake me down for every dollar I got.
Yeah, you can get eaten up with fees like that. Fees like chassis certs and all that stuff. So there's an interesting one. Destroyer, thanks a bunch for Super Chat. I appreciate it. This is for the Nacho Fund.
Nice.
Oh, sweet.
So I'll tell you what. And I'm a person who makes good on this. Destroyer sent us $10 for nachos. So if we have nachos to show, there we go. Remember that. It's in the kitty.
I've also looked, and there is a content creator room there. So I think we need to go in there and go live.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If we can do it. Well, actually, so this show I do every Friday, 8 to 10 Eastern, which is 7 to 9 Central, depending, where in the country you are. I would love to do that Friday from there. But I don't know about the time because they shut the show down at something like 5 o'clock or something. So
that's fine. We just go in there at 7 o'clock and do your show. Because that media room's still going to be there. There's just going to be a lot less people in there.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. Andrew Nelson's in the house. He says, we will be at PRI.
We will see you, buddy.
Nice.
The show just got faster.
Well, we're not going to have a booth, so maybe we can come by your place and say hi wherever you're at. Or if we run into you, then we can definitely say hi.
The Nelsons are such classy people. I think a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brian said he'd pay the $40. I figured he'd be down for it. But
I thought Brinker went to PRI last year, didn't he?
Not that I know.
Oh, I thought he did.
Well, just let us know, Brian. Look, we can talk about it. Sparks included in the live? I have no idea. I hope not. That means something shorted out.
Or we're doing burnouts on steel wheels.
Right?
Yeah. We've got Outfits Garage Russell in the house. How's it going?
And there's going to be a lot of stuff there for guys like Russell because there's PRI is not just drag racing only. There's a ton of circle track stuff there.
Yes.
A ton.
It's actually the most of it is circle track. That's why when I was with Crowder,
really?
They used to go there quite a bit. It was because there's a lot of circle track racing.
I just knew that there was a ton of it. I didn't know that it was primarily that. That's news to me, actually.
Brian, I'm going to be homeless that weekend. What are you talking about? I didn't have any plans to go till Dallas said, you know what, we should do that. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah, we're going to be one step up from homeless, but not far from it.
Yeah.
We're camping.
Three of us.
See, this stuff doesn't bother. You wouldn't believe how little comfort requirement I have at all.
Me too.
Like when I crash at Dallas's, literally, I just crash on the floor. I don't even care. I sleep on the floor every day of my life. And yesterday I was staying in Bluefield, which is where I stay to work on the old house. I've been there 3 days straight. I get up at night, my dog gets the couch. I'm like, okay, I'll just stretch out on the floor. Slept all night. So, man, nothing like that bothers me. In that one regard, I'd make a good homeless person. I really don't have any comfort requirement.
You're prepared.
Big Belly Racing's asking an interesting question. Maybe you guys will have some insight here. If you're not strong enough to walk PRI, is there room for a motorized scooter?
Yes, there's motorized. You can bring in motorized scooters.
And I think they have them there, too. They have them there for rent, I believe.
Oh, I think he's right. I think they do have them at the front door for rent.
Yep.
Yeah, this is what Brian was talking about. He goes to
the Indy Swap Meet.
I've
Yeah,
never been
okay.
there.
I thought he went to PRI. Well, I'll tell you what. With the
Oh,
added, okay, so previously PRI, all you had to do was know somebody that knew somebody that had a business and blah blah blah. You could jump in on their business and piggyback and go to the show, right? Now with the addition of $40 per person, I'll bet you 100% that the show numbers will be down, the participant viewership numbers, because right now is like the worst time in the world to hit somebody with an extra fee, because they're getting hit with the extra fee at the grocery store and with the gas station and house payment and tax bill, and everybody's getting wrecked. So
Destroyer 1320 was talking about when we took the Roadrunner horn in the conference room at Carlisle and put a battery to it. And Professor P, if you missed that, stupid here put two jumper cables together and made a huge spark show on the table.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you can actually made a short about it. You can see it on my channel.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, if the hotel staff had come in and seen that and saw how Don English in here is one-eyed cat, his brother decided to put up on orange paper with 76 days to go. He takes a screwdriver and boom, right into the drywall.
Oh, that's
But
awesome.
they welcome us back. They must tolerate a little bit.
Oh, that's funny. That's a good one. I like that one.
So Heavens Mopars is asking a good question, guys. So what is PRI? Andrew Nelson says it's a total hot rod sensory overload. But how would you guys describe it as veterans of the show?
It's what SEMA used to be. That's the best way to say it. Take all the car show out of it, and it's just products. Essentially, there will be some cars there, but it's just not a big car show. It's all the products and all the new stuff coming out that's for the hardcore racer of whatever niche you're into.
Well, and it's not even, it's called, PRI is an acronym for Performance Racing Industry Trade Show, right? And just like Shane was alluding to, SEMA originally started was like chassis builders and engine builders within the racing community, right?
Yep.
Well, now those guys have essentially been pushed out of SEMA because they don't build car show stuff. They build chassis and engines, right? And they get funneled into their own show, which became the PRI. But if you look at an old dragster chassis from, like, say, the 60s or 70s, like a Don Long chassis, they all have SEMA numbers stamped into the chassis. And that's because that was the group that was supposed to assist in helping the evolution of motorsports, right?
Yeah.
But they got away from it all and turned it into some big corporate hullabaloo, I guess. And now PRI is kind of what SEMA used to be, but it's still not even, it's still actually just getting its feet under it. For like the first couple of years was in Orlando, and then it outgrew the Orlando facility, and then they moved it. Well, actually, I think it was in Indy first, wasn't big enough, and they were losing money, so they moved it to Orlando. Then it got too big, move it back to Indy. So, and here's what sucks is, like, what I found is when you go up there, it's right when the weather in Indianapolis gets cold. And I mean, like, cold. It'll be 0 degrees or 10 degrees. And what happens is all these people come in from all over the country, and they're not used to 0 degrees. And the next thing you know, day number 2, everybody's starting to get sick. And then day number 4, which is the first day after PRI, we used to joke about it like, I'm patient 0, right? And I'm the guy that started the PRI crud, right?
Right.
Well, then when the vid came out, everybody was patient 0, and nobody was willing to go to PRI because it already has its own crud that follows it around, and then you throw that in there, and you next thing you know, you got the crud plus monkey flu. So
let's so there's a drag racing channel here who says hi. I see people in the comments abbreviating it to DRC. You don't want that abbreviation. What can I say? Just be drag racing channel. Big Belly Racing is asking, how can I verify they rent scooters? Well, guys, I don't know. My suggestion would be to contact
go to the website.
Go to the Indiana Convention Center. I
No,
would
no.
call the venue.
No, go to the Performance Racing Industry Trade Show website. It has every detail that you'll want to know. That's where you register for PRI, the whole 9 yards. So go to
They do have a link to this convention center on there too. So you may want to ask both, because I don't know which one of them would handle it. Probably the convention center, but PRI, they got a lot on that website.
I'll give you a cool idea. It cost me $250 to have an extension cord run to my booth one year.
Yeah.
So if you have your own scooter, bring that sucker.
Yeah.
Yeah. The way I had the horn wired on the conference table definitely would not have passed tech by Deke's standards.
That's funny.
Trade show for EPA to cry over. Well, perhaps. I've not been. I've only seen video and so forth, and I'd like to see it.
Well,
Outfits Garage is asking for the dates. It's going to be December 8th through the 10th this year.
And I do know for a fact, I was at PRI the year before the EPA started cracking down on all the diesel places, and I'll bet you diesel guys probably took up a quarter of that place. Right? I mean, there was a ton of diesel performance places there.
Nelson's are saying it's 60% drag racing, 5% dirt track, 10% autocross, and 25% OE manufacturers showing off crate motors.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's where I saw the unveiled Copo Camaro, too.
When the Nelsons give numbers, I always take note because they're usually spot on with their numbers.
And Andrew Nelson is saying that PRI is better than SEMA. I've never been to SEMA, so I can't compare. But I know that the first year I did PRI, it was very overwhelming.
Dust Devil Garage is asking if it's the same place as the Indy Swap Meet. No, best to my knowledge, the Swap Meet's at the fairgrounds, and this is in the Indiana Convention Center in Indianapolis.
Right. This
next
is
to Lucas Oil Stadium.
Yeah, I was going to say it's directly behind Lucas Oil Stadium. And when you get off there, you're thinking it's at Lucas Oil Stadium, because when you see it, you're like, holy crap, there will be 1 million vehicles parked around that stadium. And that's because PRI is actually taking place in the convention center and the stadium. Right? If you ever go in the stadium, that's where all the trailers and toter homes and stackers and all that stuff, that the companies that sell them, that's where they promote their products.
Hey, so I was just on the website, and they the Indy scooter rental is basically on site at PRI, no deposit needed. If you just go to the PRI webpage and just type in mobility scooter in the search, it comes right up. It says, where can I rent a scooter? And it gives you a link right to it. And you can even put a deposit on it. So there you go.
Excellent. And the link that you can go there from is below this video.
Okay.
You can click right below and then do the search like he said right there.
Yep.
Cool.
Is there another link on there that you click and it takes you to MrFantastic.com?
Well, we do have a link to AHRA channel and Slant Daily Garage.
Oh, good.
We got those two links in there, so we'll tag you guys in the video.
Nice.
I don't know what Buff and Destroyer are talking about, but they're talking about things you ride and things that make you itch. So I don't think I want to scroll up and find out.
Nope. I've been to Tijuana.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to rent a rickshaw. That's what
Dude,
Brian's
right?
going to do. He's going to have rickshaw service to get around the floor.
Dude, that would be awesome.
Ed's Machine mentions carry a small backpack, and I'll tell you this, you would want to adapt it a little bit, but if you go watch my Swap Meet survival guide from Carlisle, I mentioned carrying a backpack that's mostly empty. You do want to carry your water because you're going to consume it and make more room in the backpack. And you want to carry hand sanitizer, one of those things, just because you don't want to get sick from shaking hands and all the crud going around.
And don't mix those two up.
Yeah, some people mix them on purpose.
Hey, Big Belly Racing, you're welcome. If I had a way to post it, I actually did a copy, but I don't have anywhere to paste it. So, unfortunately.
Go to chat. Go to the chat and type it in the chat.
I can't.
You know what? No, I can do this. Let's see here. Bear with me just a second. I can do this.
I was trying to figure out how to do it here, but I just don't.
Well, John already has a plan that he's wanting to go to some of the neat little things that happen at
All right, I've
PRI.
got the YouTube browser muted. Shane, if you'll just make a post, I can make you a mod over there. Then you
Okay.
can post it.
Oh, you can't type in the chat?
No.
Huh.
Y'all on StreamYard, you got to go to YouTube to do it.
Oh.
But if you have the YouTube browser, I'll tell you, I can do it. If you can, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll put a link to it below the video right after this.
I'm just going to email it to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, why don't you email it to you, and then you can just post it up in the chat.
I'll post it up in the chat. What do we look at? It's a link for the mobility.
Yep, there you go. It's off to outer space.
Now this is the mobility scooter, not the mobility challenged women porn site, right?
That's correct. This is not for, yes, that is correct. And I even posted the number for him too, so he could just call him up.
Oh, that's sweet.
Let's see here.
Yeah, whenever I go to all these little things, I always carry a merce. I call it a man purse, which is a backpack. Always.
Yeah.
I always have a merce.
Yeah, I usually take mine too, but that's because I normally see if I get a booth. Here's the problem with having the AHRA booth. One, it costs a lot of money, and I mean that's number one thing. It's like literally like $1,800 for the booth, and then two is I get trapped in the booth. I can't get out of the booth. People will want to come and talk to you, and then they're mad that you aren't there, right? And so you get kind of stuck playing a game where what you're trying to do is promote your association and meet these other entities so that you can work with them, and you can't because you can never get out of the booth.
Yeah.
Here's a question specifically for Professor P. Will a 74 8 1/4 from a Duster fit a Dart?
Yes. All 8 bodies in 1974 were the exact same 43. And that's actually the one I'm looking for because they're the smaller of the 7 1/4s and the 8 1/4. They're the smaller flange because I have my slicks are designed for that style. But yes, that's exactly what I'm looking for is that 74 8 1/4. So when I turbo my slant 6, that's what I need because a 7 1/4 is not going to handle 300 horse.
So that 8 1/4, you say is 74. What year's 8 1/4 will interchange?
74 and 75. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I had it looked up the other on Wednesday, but there's an actual drum to drum diameter distance that I'm looking for, and there was 3 years that it fit. And then in 75 they went to it's a wider track, and because my rims are pushed out, it will hit my fender.
Then what stands to reason would be 73 4 and 5. Because 72 would be an 8 3/4. So if 76 was different and there were 3 years, they would probably be 73 4 and 5.
That's what I would guess. Yes.
I did not realize that. This is interesting. And by the way, Irish Outlaw says he's sick as a dog. I'm sorry to hear that. Hope you get well quickly. Rocky Meyer says PRI used to have an engine raffle for Sonny Leonard engine. Proceeds went to Petty's Victory Junction charity. Sonny Leonard just died here, a year or two ago, and his shop was about an hour and a half drive up the road from me.
Wow.
Is it still open, or are they completely gone?
Oh, as far as I know, it is, yeah.
Okay.
I haven't been in there in a long time, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you wanted to go to the I guess it's the David, or isn't it David Rear?
Yeah, he does a seminar at PRI every year, has for about 20 years. He did it with Dick Maskin, and now that Maskin's gone, I think he's doing it himself.
And every time you say Dick Maskin, makes me think, because he used to be a pro stock racer. He ran Maskin and Canner's car. So
the Dust Devil Garage, not entirely. If you had a drum brake front end 73 and up, it was still small bolt pattern.
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that 4-inch pattern?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 5 on 4 inch.
Oh, I didn't know that even existed up that late. I thought that was just the early Dart or early A bodies.
No. And they were still left-handed too on those.
They were left-handed up through 71, I believe.
71.
Either 70 or 71, yeah.
Yeah, everything I have is at 60 in the 60s, so those all left-handed. I had to hammer out every single one of those.
Yeah. And most of the time when you buy those, somebody in the chain of owners did not know that and broke them or broke one or
Exactly.
two.
Yep.
Well, that was
Yeah.
me. I had a guy bring a 63 Buick to my house, and it was like, hey, put this motor in my 63 Buick. Sure. And then he wanted me to do the brakes and all that stuff. And I'm like, man, these lug nuts just don't come off. They're tight as shit. And then it broke every single one of them off. And then on the front. And then I realized, oh, I bet you this car is a reverse thread. So I replaced them all. And I replaced them anyway. You know, I'm surprised that they still had them, to be honest with you.
Big Belly Racing's asking a worthy question because I don't know who's done this. First generation Dakota doing a swap from an 8 1/4 to a 9 1/4. The only two things I know about that swap is I know that the second generation Dakotas, the upgrade axle was a 9 1/4.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very easy to find in sure grips and deep ratios because those are all practically all overdrive. And rear disc brakes, a lot of them had rear discs if you get one from a Dakota. But the other interesting thing is that a 9 1/4 and an 8 1/4 have exactly the same measurement from the center of the axle to the center of the U-joint.
Oh,
so the drive shaft is a straight lateral. Same drive shaft fits both.
that's something I did not know because I had 9 1/4s in all my mid 80s Dodge trucks that I had.
Yeah.
And even my Ram Charger, I put a 9 1/4 in it because I never broke one, but they're incredibly strong.
Oh yeah, 9 1/4 is very strong. I mean, it is a C-clip rear, and it.
Well, I wonder how power hungry it is in comparison to the 8 1/4.
I don't know. I mean, it definitely all the parts are a lot heavier and weigh a lot more. I know that some people have had problems with them in Dakotas, beating a pinion bearing out of them and so forth, but the older ones didn't seem to have a durability problem.
All mine were drum brakes, and I never had an issue with any one of them. And I beat the crap out of them. I had 35-inch tires on them, and they were in my Ram Charger. And I had one that was a 4-inch lift, and it had a pretty hopped up 360 in it. And we took it everywhere. We drove it through trees, and it never hurt.
The later 9 1/4s that they put in the Dakotas on the sure grip units, they put these little hardened metal inserts around the pins. And the idea is that it would keep them from wearing and ovaling out the castings and messing up the differential itself. Well, the problem is, I can tell you from experience, when you really hammer on it and you're out there, doing cyclones in the snow and stuff you probably shouldn't be, you can break those. And when they come out, they'll just go all through the ring and pinion and chew them up. And
so it's worse because it's hardened steel.
Yeah, and it'll still run forever like that, but if they'd have just done what they used to do and just left it alone instead of trying to improve the design, it wouldn't have had that little time bomb in there.
Oh, speaking of time bomb, that's the 14 bolt in my Suburban. It has a magnetic drain plug somebody put in there, and the first time I went to take it out, I couldn't even get it out. Right? It had so much crap stuck to the magnetic drain plug that it actually fouled the hole when you take it out.
Wow.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh, some synthetic. Right?
Wow.
That'll reduce the friction. And it was whining on the way here, and hopefully it whines all the way home.
But you're getting good mileage, so just let it eat, right?
Yeah, well, I got 16.4 on the way here. And I had thought I was getting 17.9, and then I realized, something's not right. Let me do the math, because that's not even possible, really, I don't think. Not with no overdrive. And so I figured out, as everybody was passing me, I figured out I wasn't running 72 miles an hour, right? I pulled out my GPS on my phone, and it was like, yeah, you're running 67. I was 4 miles an hour off, so it was 68 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, crap. So luckily I got this Dakota Digital Dash in here. I just recalibrated it real quick. But I think what it is I just put this switch pitch transmission in here, and I think maybe the gear on the output shaft has like one different tooth maybe, or I don't know. That's the only thing I could come up with because it was calibrated before. But now it's back to the same RPM where it's 2,700 RPM at 67 miles an hour. So I know I'm probably pretty close. And I know if I could slow it down just a little bit, like say the 2,500 RPM, but that's literally like 64.
Yeah.
It would probably be worth some mileage, but
The way I get around the speedometer and odometer accuracy, when I'm traveling, I just drop a GPS pin where I fill up for gas, and I drop another one when I fill up again.
Yeah.
oh,
And
really?
that way I get around the whole relying on the odometer or any of that.
How I get around is I go to the TCI, and when they tear apart all the 727s, I've got a bag of every single gear, every mate. So
Nice.
when you go through the little math of what it's supposed to be, they design those from like say 0 to like 60. But then after 60, it gets really far off. So then I actually changed the gearing, so it's actually from 40 to 80 is my accurate range. So below 40, I really don't care, but from 40 to 80, it's within a mile per hour. So
Nice.
it's pretty accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you want. Hello, Levi. How you doing? Good to see you. I know this is an interesting little tech thing I hadn't known. Dust Devil Garage says the Dakota axles were the same width, and the first gen used an 8 1/4 sure grip. In the Shelby Dakota, that's what you use when you convert a second generation to 5 lug. Okay, that's interesting.
Okay.
You could probably also use the sure grip unit from a Jeep because they used an 8 1/4. I've got one out here actually. It's like a 355 with a sure grip.
Really?
Yep. And they're cheap. You get them all day long. Came out of a Grand Cherokee.
And Professor P, isn't that what you're needing? Is a 355 sure grip for like an 8 1/4?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
You need an 8 1/4 sure grip.
Yes.
With a 355.
Well, actually, I'm going to try to stay with a 7 1/4 sure grip. But if I can't find a 7 1/4, then I'm going to move to an 8 1/4 because I know I can find that stuff all day long. But really, what I'm looking for is a 7 1/4 sure grip, so I can keep what I have right now, and then try to see if I can make the turbo work on that.
It says there's a different spline count, so somewhere in there they've changed that, of course, to mess us up.
But if it's a Jeep part, you can call, and there's about 900 different places that have axles.
Exactly.
Yeah, Brian was going to build a second generation Dakota. You can also use an 8 3/4 out of an E-body. Well, yeah, but that 8 3/4 E-body housing, that's in the medium to upper difficult expensive range. That would be you could also, I'd imagine, if you could use an E-body housing, you could also use a
I think we lost John.
71 to 70 B-body. Am I blinking out on you or something?
Yeah, yep. You're RoboCopping us and
not good.
I guess max headroom at the same time.
I was going to say max headroom.
If I disappear, I'll be back.
Well, speaking of that, I hate to cut it short, but I actually have to go. I'm lost somewhere here in Norfolk, and my aunt is waiting for me. So I'm going to cut it a little, like, way early so that I can get over to her place at a reasonable time, and she's probably waiting for me. So I'll see everybody later. I know we'll probably do this in a couple more weeks, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll have certainly a few more plans set aside for the PRI event. Maybe we can all do something since we're going to be there like 3 days or 4 days.
Sure.
We'll have like flash mob car show, not at Lambert's. Maybe PRI parking lot.
Well, we might do something like that.
Let's find a nice like bitchin' restaurant out there, that has an open parking lot. Let's do that.
Here's a funny question for you. Outfits Garage asks, any thoughts on No Name Nationals 2023 yet? That's in full swing. That, you know what, Dallas and I started that the day after No Name Nationals 2022. We were doing the accounting. So,
and what's funny is that very next Wednesday when we had our live, the Tech Talk, the whole thing was about No Name Nationals.
Right. Yeah, people were asking if we had dates and we'd work anything out, and it's like, geez, man, because I didn't get home until Tuesday, I think.
I told Dallas, I said, yeah, we really need to do a debrief this Friday. He says, well, yeah. He says, we got the Tech Talk Live Wednesday. I said, oh, no, you don't. You don't realize they're going to eat you up with No Name National. They're not even going to let you do any tech stuff. And
that means the good thing about that is that you made an impression and it was a good event.
Yeah.
People enjoyed it, right? So,
right.
I mean, and I'm never gonna like
Right.
be upset with that at all.
No, no.
Because that was the goal. The goal was to put on an event that nobody else had and make it tailored toward the YouTube content creator. And I think we did a damn good job.
I came in as 100% participant, and I even told Dallas this. As far as from a pure participant, it was one of the best ones I ever did. Now, I was there with 2 kids and just one day, but just to be able to show up, do my thing, and then be able to get called out 4 or 5 times what I did, and do my little grudge racing, it was awesome. I had a great time.
Yeah, that's the idea is to have fun, not pack yourself up with so much business that you're miserable trying to get through it all.
I can safely say that I was probably the latter part of that. John and I were both like, if you had noticed, both of us were so dehydrated that our lips were splitting open, right?
I was getting rough.
I would go to bed every night, midnight, 1 o'clock, wake up at 5. And that was how the event went for me. Yeah. And I'd work until the next night at midnight. I mean, I stopped and took a break. I drank probably 2 beers with Ron Ward while we were doing the community cookout over at my trailer. And I fell asleep before I even got to eat. So,
wow.
I mean, and that's how rough that thing was. It was a fun event. I'm glad everybody had a blast, but man, I feel bad because I was literally like one-legged man in the butt kicking contest. Yeah, I didn't have shoes on, right? So it was tough.
The way I see it is that everybody worked really hard to get there, so everybody wanted to be there. That was the whole point, and that's why it wasn't just someone could just drop some money and just show up and I'm just going to go to this show. No, they had to put in months of work. Some people, 8 or 9 months. So when they got there, they were like, I'm going to enjoy this at all cost.
Oh, I agree. And there was people that tried to just drop a bunch of coin and be there, and it didn't happen.
No.
318 wheel runs in the house.
Nice.
John Cope is in the house. Brian is saying that No Name Nationals is all that anyone is talking about. He said it comes up in it pretty well does.
Yes.
Whether they want it to or not.
I'm not even part of it, and I get text messages about the No Name Nationals. And in Slant Daily Garage, I get those, and people just, hey, what's Dallas going to do? What are they going to do? I was like, I don't know. I don't have a clue.
Yeah, we're getting all of our ducks in a row. We're trying to make it happen at Jeffers. We don't know if it's going to or not.
Well, we'll see.
But that's the plan.
Can I make one suggestion? One suggestion. If you showed up and you had to have 500, this is just my suggestion. If you had 500 and you got in there, the next No Name Nationals, you have to have 500 more. Why don't you try that? That might be kind of fun.
We got things to figure out because
I'm putting you on the spot.
You got to divide between what people want to do. And my thing is you give everybody enough time and then there's just no excuses because frankly, there's no excuse. Anybody who wants 500 subscribers, if they can't do it in 9 months, they can't do it 9 lifetimes.
Exactly.
And I know there are people who maybe they've had a YouTube channel for 5 and 6 years and they have 100. Well, I realize that, but you're going to have to change tactics to get to 500. But people do it all the time, and it works.
The 500 number. Yeah,
there's nobody who came to the content creator workshops. But the people who came to those frequently and did what we suggested, they all got it. I mean, that was consistent. I mean, everybody who really wanted to get it got it.
Mm-hmm.
And the 500 was literally. It's not that you needed 500. The 500 was a mark that was set by YouTube, and that's where they would actually give you a community tab to where essentially that's when they recognize you as a content creator. That was the only reason we did that, because if we looked at it like this, if we did the event and you only had to have 1 sub, right? How many people would have been there that had 1 sub, and then how many people would have came to see that person? Because you wouldn't even know what they built because they only literally did like 1 or 2 shows, right? And the whole idea was to give them something that they could build. You could follow it for a few months, and you're like, man, I do want to see that thing at the No Name Nationals. And that was the idea behind it. Going further from there, I think it takes a lot of manpower. I mean, a lot of people don't know, but John sent an email almost daily, or was it daily, John?
Pretty close to daily.
To say where everybody was that was below 500, and he would have to track all these channels. Well, there was 65 of them that started off, right?
Yep. Well, we had a total of 65. Of the 65, 45 made it. And I would put notes in there about things like, some people were moving at a faster pace than others. So, for example, there might have been somebody with 200 subscribers, but maybe we would put more emphasis on helping a guy with 300 because he was moving at a much slower rate, for example. But in the end, it was all stacked toward trying to help the most number of people putting in the most effort to get there. And I think it worked well.
Right. Well, I remember August, like eating my own foot because I'm like, James and James show is got to pull off the biggest Hail Mary there ever was to make it to this thing. And within 2 weeks, they had their 500 subs.
Well, right? The big thing is it's more than the subs. It creates a certain amount of accountability.
Yes.
For people they have to give up some of that anonymity. Like the trolls can't do it because you have to, you show who you are. You get on camera, you engage with the community, and really what it does is it promotes better behavior. And this was a reason why we didn't have any problems with anybody who came.
No.
There was not a single problem. Nobody raised a voice. Nobody made a fist. We didn't have any bad behavior. Nothing got stolen. The place got cleaner than we found it. I mean, that, and I think that having to have that little bit of content creator threshold, it kind of separated out the people who don't care about that kind of stuff a little bit, but it was a number that was very attainable.
I call it the sweat equity. They have to put a little bit of sweat equity into it,
And 318 Will Run is right. He says using No Name Nationals in the title worth 300 subs. I'll tell you what, I think that at the beginning of the year, it looked like it was worth about 150 to start with. If you just registered, you got 150. And we would watch people who would refuse to register. There was one channel that refused to register till he had 500, and he didn't make it. And if he just registered, he'd have made it. But coming from us, it's like it's self-serving. I'm like, dude, it's not about $75. It's about watch what's going on.
Yeah.
Once you register, you get on the map. And Andrew Nelson's exactly right. If Dylan Levi wasn't worried about something, we'd be worried about you. That's what he does. He likes to worry. I expect some fast stuff and performance out of Levi's Backyard Performance next year.
Oh, well, that thing it made one good pass, didn't it? And it still was pretty dang fast.
He drove it to the cruise.
Yeah.
He drove it to Lambert's. He can drive it on the street and it still's fast. That's another thing, too, is I fully expect the cruise to be much bigger.
Yeah.
Nah, the Cabral thing, Rocky Myers, we're past that. We tried it and all. I wouldn't want him there anyway. I don't want.
I wanted to sing the national anthem. Yeah, I wanted to sing the national anthem.
I don't want any of that there.
He was a professional singer, right? This guy was he's done more in his lifetime than anybody else I know. He was a professional singer, retired Marine, Hell's Angel.
Retired at 70 years, like so many people do.
Yeah. Well, my whole entire 23-year career, I never saw anybody retire at 17.
That's odd. Dust Devil Garage can't wait to see a number on the orange paper. Well, as soon as the number appears here, you'll know that we have a date. But anyway, as for PRI, I'm excited about it. I noticed that Bigfoot 4x4, Bob and Ann Trent are registered for Bigfoot.
You know what?
So hopefully they're bringing a truck.
I think I figured out what we need to do, man. At PRI, we'll have a flash mob live, right? At the content creator office or whatever the heck they got set aside there. And then it's like everybody that wants to be in the live, be there at that time.
Just come by and say hi. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian says that when he sees a number on the paper, he'll put batteries back in the clock. Professor P, did you see the clock that we sent Brian?
No.
Oh
John,
my gosh!
John and I
I'm
made a
having-
clock like the first week of after the announcement of No Name Nationals.
Yeah.
Brian from Dust Devil Garage here was like, I'm going to the No Name Nationals. And he had like a frame, right?
Look at that.
So we
So
made him a clock. And on this clock, it's got several sections. Now, you notice that it starts bright green and it ends up dark red, right?
Yes, I see that.
The sections are lots of time. Just plenty of time. Just keep calling people out. Time to get busy. Man, this car needs more than I thought. Keep working on it and hope all the parts get here. We have problems and half the time is gone. Backup plan 205 radials. Okay, it doesn't have to be painted. Call Jed, ask if he has 205 radials. I can't believe how many parts a Duster is supposed to have. Call everyone, panic time, find people to blame. Maybe I can just roll it onto the show field and make car noises. And the last section is lots of time for next year's No Name Nationals. And then it starts over.
That's good. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, he was like I said, he's the guy that started with the Ambitious Project because it was literally this like it was a shell. It was literally like a body shell. And he
Right.
built an entire car to be there. And he was busy doing a live. I want to say the first time he announced that he had a live. And there was like 6 guys in the live. And they were on this live for like 4 hours. And nobody picked up any tools. And I'm like, oh no, I don't know if this is going to make it because Brian's getting distracted with all the stuff going on. Right. And then all of a sudden he ends up tripping over, I think he got the vid one time, or him and his wife both got it. And then, oh, what's up?
I'm trying to get my camera to come back. I put my screen up there and it makes the resolution get all fuzzy. I'm trying to fix it. Sometimes
not
I can get it
focusing.
to refocus.
Yeah.
I'll keep working on it. Sorry.
Yeah, well, no, that's all right. And what ended up happening was Brian, it kind of came down to what the clock that we had put together 9 months before. Instead of it being irony, it was like
Truth.
Yeah, it was truth, but it was sad.
Yeah.
Because you wanted to see the car there because you'd followed it the whole time, but he ended up running into parts delay issues.
Yep.
And
There we go.
oh god, it was horrible.
Well, that's what happened with my 68 Dart is that I had everything there and it just came down to some clutch issues. Really what it was is my 52 tooth reluctor wheel. I didn't have one. And there was none in the nation. There was nothing around. And so I couldn't even put the engine together because I had no way to trigger the ignition.
You couldn't get one water jetted?
I mean, you probably could, but by the time you do that, it just, I don't know. I would have to. I didn't even want to go to that point. I was just gonna. That's why I just brought the Dart, the because I was gonna go to Drag Week with that car, and then also the Drag Week was just a warm up for the Nationals. That's the way I was looking at it. But it just didn't happen, and then it got to the point where it was just almost 3-4 weeks, and then finally it came in, and then I just didn't want to thrash for 4 weeks, so I was just like, nah. So, but yeah, that's what happened to me. Parts.
That sucks.
Yeah, it is what it is. Now I got 2 cars to choose. Actually, I'll have 3 cars to choose for No Name Nationals next year. I might bring up a fleet.
Well, oh man, you know how many trips you're gonna have to make? Well, you don't live too far from there. Man, that's what people were asking me if I was going to bring the T-Bird and, if I was going to bring some Mr. Rodder's neighborhood Buick stuff. And it's like, gosh, man, I live 4 hours, 5 hours away.
Yeah.
I have to make like 2-3 trips there just to bring all that stuff. And it just it wasn't logical. But
yeah, well, the wife can drive one of them, so when we go, we're thinking about next time is that I'll drive the truck and trailer with one of the race cars and the wife will just drive the Lizard King.
Yeah. Well,
Cool.
I'd like to I really want to bring that super stock Buick if I have it running by then.
What I'm seeing is that everybody is going to be faster. I mean, everybody's just wants to be faster. The bracket's going to be bigger. There's going to be a lot more entrance in the burnout competition. The 28-10-5 it may well take a 4 to win that. I just see everything getting bigger and a little more competitive and bigger in general. And about the biggest emphasis that we're working on so far is just making sure that it doesn't get crammed up and miserable trying to keep up. So we're going to make sure Thursday Tech is open. We're going to make sure to have the track hot earlier on Friday, that kind of stuff. But that's the idea, is to try to make sure it stays fun and grows smart.
You want to hear something really funny? Because I promote stuff through Jeffers' Facebook page. I always get their comments, and they're having a small tire no time race up there this weekend, the last race of the year, and somebody was like, "Hey, I'm coming from Arkansas. I want a piece of that Venom car," and they're like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm thinking, you know what? That's Redbeard's car, isn't it?
I talked to Redbeard's dad today. I told him, I said, you'll have a target on you next year.
Well, I thought it was funny. All these small tire, no time guys wanted a piece of Venom, and all they had to do was come up for No Name Nationals. And
you got to get your subs.
Now that car is associated with Jeffers Motorsports Park.
Well, that's the car.
But the big thing is I was telling Mr. Barber today, because I was talking to Redbeard's dad. I said, we got a decent turnout there, but I said that the people who turned out for year one were people who had the vision to understand what we were describing, right? So if you get your subscribers, which I got so much grief from just a handful of people saying, oh, you shouldn't have a sub count. They're just going to sub to each other. I said, good. That's called building a community.
Exactly.
And build a community it did. And the people who didn't get it didn't see how much that mattered. If you looked at what people were doing for one another to help one another and how much they cared about each other at this event, it was amazing. And I know that everybody engaging in each other's channels had that effect, and it worked. But it's an intangible people can't see.
Well, hey, guys, I got to roll now. So I will see you all in a couple of weeks. I appreciate everybody being here for the live. Professor Pete, it was good seeing you. I hadn't seen you since Wednesday.
Take it easy, Dallas.
And John, thanks for inviting me.
Oh, yeah, man. Of course.
All right. Well, I'll see you all later.
Take it easy, man. Drive safe.
Drive safe, man. Well, cool. Then there were two. You guys got the professor here. Do you have any tech questions for the professor? Any PRI questions? You guys know as much about the show as I do. I've never been. And how is Dallas stuck in Norfolk somewhere? Does he not use GPS to travel?
I think he missed, like he was saying, he just legitimately missed a turn. And when I was coming back from Drag Week, I was going through St. Louis there, and I had to go from one side to the other, and I missed a turn, and I had the GPS, and man, it was impossible. So I had to end up driving around the arch a few times to get out of that city.
Yeah. I know that the absolute worst to me was trying to follow Highway 220 through Greensboro before GPS. I think I counted 11 turns to stay on 220, and one of them was just down some little street. And it was hard to do. It was really hard to do. And you'd stop and figure out where you were, get the atlas out, and all of that.
I think Highway or is it Freeway 35 through Dallas, what they did is they give a kid a crayon, and that was the guy who was the planning map for that freeway as it goes through the city.
So Patrick's been to PRI, loves it. Rob's Rising Streetcar is asking, is PRI for shops only? No,
that people can go there. That's the whole point, is that the shops are trying to show what they have. But you can also have just regular guys. There was people just doing water jets there in 2019. They were people doing 3D printing, because that was like the metal 3D printing was really popular then, 3D printing rods and stuff. So there's people doing that.
Like using the powdered stuff and printing like that. Yeah, I've heard a lot about that.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we're seeing. So Levi said he made a lot of friends at No Name Nationals. That's great. That's the idea.
Yeah, I did too.
One-Eyed Cat is asking a question. So he is rebuilding the front end on a 62 Valiant right now, and he's got his whole kit. And I'm assuming it has control arm bushings, ball joints, and all that. He asked how long it's going to take. I told him one of the biggest things is if you get the control arm bushings without the outer shell, or if you're going to get them with it. And I recommend that he get the ones without it so that he can just press the new bushing into the old shell in the control arm.
On the lower control arm, yeah. And what I typically do is I'll get the pin that goes through that has the grease fitting in it, because normally when you press that in, it's going to be a polyurethane. So that way, when you can grease it, so after you screw the nut on, you tighten it, you can grease that, and it stops it from squeaking. But as far as how long is it going to take, I got pretty good at them. I can do them in a weekend.
Yeah, a weekend is a reasonable.
Oh,
yeah, it's
yeah,
very
right
reasonable. Very
Yeah.
reasonable.
Yeah,
Just take
it's really
your time.
simple.
It all makes sense.
Yeah, and as far as pressing out the upper control arm bushings, I just made them out of 1/2 inch all thread and some nuts, and then I just use sockets, and that way you can just press them in and out. It's really a simple deal.
You can do that. The way I usually do it is I take an air hammer with a blunt chisel and I
Oh yeah,
crush the shell in and they just drop out.
yep,
And then the new one, I'll support it with a socket so it doesn't bend the arm and just press it in. And you can even do that in a bench vise if it's
yeah,
not too awfully tight.
yeah. I've done them both ways. Yeah, usually when I do it with the all thread, just one, and then it just pops right out in a few seconds.
Well, that's a good point. If you're painting and stuff, the paint and getting the rust off and painting and making it nice will take longer than actually putting the front end together.
Yes, that will take another weekend.
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm. So 2 weekends.
Well, Tony here is saying ball joint press works well, but remember this is the ball joints themselves are screw in on
Yep.
those cars, and he has the smaller one that uses the smaller socket,
Mm-hmm.
and he's got the sockets. So that's easy. They
Yeah.
usually come loose pretty easy, actually.
Yeah. And then when they come out, I usually just leave them already hooked up, so that way the whole front end's all together, and I'll
Mhm.
pop them loose before
Yep.
I even take anything apart. So that way they're already
Yep.
ready to go.
Exactly. Exactly. It's actually pretty intuitive. You take your time. It's not bad at all.
Yeah, and here's another tip too, is that I have a really long breaker bar. So what I'll do is I'll take the clip out in the back for the torsion bar, and I'll leave the nut on, or take the nut off, and then between the lower control arm and the K member, I'll just pop the pry bar in there. And when you pop it back, it not only does it take off the pin out of the K member, but it'll take the the torsion bar out of the back at the exact same time, and it pops it all off at once. And also take the nut off on the strut rod, and it just pops the whole thing off real easily.
And Tony's got a good point. If you do have a small enough adapter, you can use it to do the bushings too, like a ball joint press.
Mm-hmm.
That's nothing wrong with that. There's a bunch of different ways to do it.
Yeah.
Let's see here. And of course, everything's different. Like if you're doing something like a Camaro, a lot of guys like to box those control arms, which they usually go overboard on that. But if you're going to box them before you take the bushings out. Then you don't have to reinforce it to try to get the bushings out. Otherwise, that arm will bend.
Yeah.
Mopars are much better in that regard.
Yeah.
They had a better stuff. The older ones are.
Yeah. And I usually box in that lower control arm anyways. It's really simple.
Yeah, and Patrick's talking about the same thing. Well, but I'm talking about boxing like you're talking boxing the lower. I'm talking about on a Chevrolet where the control arm's this wide.
Oh yeah.
They would put like a plate, like an 1/8 inch plate on the bottom, like for road racing and stuff.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, the Mopar ones are easy to box. Yeah, Patrick's talking about that. Get the ball joints loose before you take the upper arms off. Exactly.
Absolutely.
The worst part of doing that job, in my opinion, is getting that camber bolt out.
Yes.
You're trying to cut that out. And usually I'll take a torch and burn the rubber. Then the arm will shift enough that you can get in there and cut that camber bolt out. When it's seized solid with rust, that's what seems to me to be the best way to do it. But there's a bunch of ways you can do it. I don't know. That's a good question. Do you know anywhere you can get loaded control arms for those that have everything on them new?
No, I've never seen that before. The only ones I've seen those loaded are going to be this is for a Mopar style, would be the ones with their already have the Heim joints in them.
Yeah.
That's the one way I've seen them.
like a QA1 or something.
There you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
the QA ones.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Well, One-Eyed Cat, he's building a car, needs to build a channel too. Make sure you film that stuff and put it up as you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's got a cool ride up. You can see a thumbnail on one of my videos. He's got two white 62 Valiants. One of them is a slant 6 and one of them is a 440.
Okay.
And it's an interesting pair of them. They're both like appliance white, and it's just cool. I mean, how often do you see a 62 Valiant at all? And he has a pair of them go down the road.
You know that right off the bat, my wife would just love him because that's actually her favorite car. Is that 62 Valiant Dart.
Now, they were at No Name Nationals, the Englishes. Great people. Just great people. They'll be there. I see them at Carlisle every year.
When's Carlisle coming up?
Carlisle's in July. It's middle of July every year. So
it's weird being on this side of the Mississippi and all the stuff that actually happens on this side. You know, when I was in California, there was nothing. It was just like this. I was in this like bottom, southwest hole. But here, you're open up to everything. Within 5 or 6 hours of anything that goes on.
Yeah. Yeah. So Dallas says are you looking at flying to PRI?
No, actually, you know what? I was actually looking at that. I was looking at getting a plane ticket, but there's no direct flights from Memphis up there. So it's 5 hours just to get up there. So I was like, I'm just going to drive it. 6-hour drive, 6.5. So I'm just going to drive up Wednesday after work.
It would take me longer to fly, which I don't care about. But flying, so I don't want to get into the whole masks and vaccines and all that stuff on a flight. I don't want to get into all of that.
Right.
And the other thing, too, is, of course, I travel with my hardware, and I definitely don't want to stop in LaGuardia. So my choices are stopping in Atlanta, New York City, or Charlotte. And so New York City is out, even on a connector. Because if they have a layover and they make you claim your bag, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Because that's just a problem. That's a notorious problem there. What they do is even though your handgun is legal, they arrest you and then drop the charges after 2 days just to punish you. They've done that to a lot of travelers.
Yeah.
So I just avoid that altogether.
Yeah, I'm going to just drive.
I'm going to drive it. Yeah.
Yeah, 6.5 hours. And if I leave, say 4:30 on Wednesday, I'll be up there by midnight or so.
No, it's the race car flea market at Carlisle's tomorrow. Well, cool. Well, Tony, I will say, for what it's worth, I have flown with a lot of stuff. If you have any questions about what I have experience with, I'm glad to share. I've got some good stories. I've flown with a lot of guns. So, One-Eyed Cat needs a tripod. Well, you got Wendy sometimes.
You really don't need a tripod. You can go get one of those little small tripods. I have one that's about a foot tall, and it holds my phone. This is all I have for my whole YouTube channels right here.
Exactly. That's all you need. That's all you need.
And then I just upload the video, and then exactly, that's all you need. I'm looking at getting a GoPro so that way I can put it on my head so I can actually show some action shots. Yeah. But other than that, that's all you need.
I got to tell you, though, a tripod is nice, and you don't have to spend a lot of money for one. You really don't. And you can find seriously, 10 or 20 bucks at a pawn shop or something like that. Yeah. And they make them with a little mount now that you can get this mount for 10 bucks that just clamps your phone.
It's exactly right.
Set your tripod up, you clamp your phone in it. If you're filming something long, you can just take one of those auxiliary battery packs and plug in the phone to do like a long time lapse or something.
Exactly.
Makes it really easy. The phone to me is way better than dealing with other stuff.
Agreed. And you can also, because it has such a good camera on it, it's better than most cameras that you buy. In fact, I have a tripod right here. I got this one on Amazon, and it folds up to 1 foot tall. So, and it's got everything you need to hook onto it, and it works great. I think it was like 15 bucks. It's actually an Amazon. It's the actual Amazon Basics, and it folds up really nice, and it goes up tall or short, and it's got everything, all the connections that you need, and It crimps together and holds your phone. Works bitchin'.
I'm
So,
so I have a question from Street Fox here. If I have
sure.
been to Carlisle when they have mixed makes and models. No, I've not. I've only been to Chrysler, but I'll tell you this. I got looks from the event staff like they wanted to kill me for this 62 Valiant that I sneaked onto the show field.
Nice.
Yeah. That van self-identifies as a 62 Valiant 2 days a year.
That's right. In today's day and age, it can do that, right?
You can do that. It can do that. Every time I hold my camera up there, it wants to mess with my camera. It's all right. But that's the thing. If you can offend the people running the car show with something that's not show worthy, then that's a win.
You know, I have one car that is painted that's nice and I spent some money on. The rest of them, I'll make them drivers. It's so much nicer to get into a car and drive and park in a parking lot and not even worry about it.
I think that's just the way it's going. And
Mhm.
the old pristine cars with the correct jack instruction decals and all of that stuff, there are fewer and fewer people who care about that stuff. And to me, that was what a huge component of the No Name Nationals is. Nothing there was like that.
No,
Everybody just had what they wanted to have and enjoy.
that's right. I get a lot of flack from my 68 Dart with me cutting up, the tunnel. I mean, that car was in pristine condition, but you know what? It's a 68 Dart. These are race cars. They're the economy cars of their day. And I wanted to make what I wanted to make. And it's a Gen 3 Hemi with a 5-speed and, a triangulated 4-link in the back. I wanted to make a road racing car. I have other cars that I haven't messed with. My wife's Creamy Beaver. It is absolutely totally stock, but it's just that's the way she likes it. So we're just gonna leave it like that. So it is what it is. To each their own, But the cars are just an expression of yourself.
Yeah.
Have fun with it.
And not everything has to be the same. I mean,
No.
you can have a really fast car, you can have a slow car, you can have a show car. You don't have to have. I've seen people who will have 6 cars and yet they build them all extremely similarly. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. For
Mhm.
me, like my Dart Sport, I want to make it that vintage race car.
Yeah.
But it's also fun to have a cruiser that just does that well.
Mhm.
And to me anyway, and everybody's different, but to me, not everything has to be a race car. Not everything has to be loud. Not everything has to make your hearing ring after a 50-mile drive.
Exactly.
To me, I think it's more fun when you split up and have more purpose-built stuff in each direction.
I agree with that's why I have 3 darts for that
Yeah,
exact reason.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I took a slant 6 on drag week, to get up in front of those, especially at Byron Dragway, man, there
Right.
was I was sold out. There was nowhere. You were talking about, you know, 2 or 3,000 people line the track. And here I am going to go up there with no burnout and run a 16-second quarter mile, and I was just like,
Yeah.
I'm having fun.
Yeah, have fun.
That's
So I'm
right.
not going to get this close to my camera to make it have a fit, but that van there, so
Yep.
you see Nancy Cook in the comments, that's her van. She bought that van new in 1985,
Yeah.
and it had been missing for about 20 years, and I found it and bought it back, and I took it. She lives in Georgia now, and I took it down there for her to drive on her birthday in March,
That's awesome.
and she hadn't seen it in about 2 decades.
Wow.
And it's not as shiny as it was, back in the 80s, but it is. See, there it is in the day.
Oh, wow. Look at
Yeah,
that.
it was a nice sharp conversion van. But anyway, I thought that was cool. So now I've been making it run better. I gave it a tune up and stuff like that. I drive it on long trips. I
Hmm.
have all year. But now I'm going to start making it look better too. So
That's cool. It's got a 318 in it.
got a 318 that runs great.
Perfect. That's all
Best
you
I
need.
can tell, it is the original 318. 318, 999, and an 8 1/4 rear end.
Oh,
And
it's
it,
got
and
a
it
lockup
runs
converter.
great. 16 lockup converter, 16 miles to gallon. And man, I drive that thing everywhere. So
Man, that's awesome.
and I got a killer deal on a Group 27 battery at Interstate down there in Georgia. They have one of those warehouses with better prices even than here. I thought we had good prices here. I got a new Group 27 for $31
No way.
for real in the van.
Wow. Have you seen the price of the batteries lately? They're
Oh, it's
ridiculous.
insane.
It's ridiculous.
$31. I mean, the core on a battery is $15 now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I went to go look at batteries because the wife's car needs one, and man, they're like $140 for just a regular Group 34 battery, and I'm just like, wow, that's insane.
The prices of batteries are just out of control.
Yeah. Now I did hear that Walmart was doing like a batteries where they were like repurposing them or refurbishing them.
Right.
So I don't know if that's true or not. I'm going to go take a look and try it out, see if it works.
What Don English is talking about there, we had he and his brothers, we put a 383, a 727, all kinds of parts in that van.
Mm-hmm.
And people say, "What'd you do this weekend?" Well, I put a 383 in the van. Yeah, I put it in the side door. rode just like a passenger. And it's got 200 some thousand. I have no idea. The odometer quit working at 195, 378. No idea.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
That's the best.
Yeah. Yeah, but I got a cousin Eddie had a where while I drive it and all that good stuff. So I have fun with it. Dusty Devil Garage saying they have a junkyard that refurbishes the batteries. So have you done any battery refurbishing experiments, Professor?
Yeah, absolutely. I back in the back when I was a parts jockey, we used to what you do is you put a lot of amps to them. We would take the tops off of them, and then we would fill them up with distilled water just below the bottom, and we would put like 50 amp loads to these things, and just to get them bubbling. And then it's basically a sulfate deal. I mean, I could go into all the
Right.
basically, but you're just boiling out the sulfates, and then once you do that, you let them cool back down, and then you just put them on a trickle charge, and then they come right up, and they actually work really good. And I've actually done that. If you look at some of my batteries, I have a stick welder, and then when they start to get bad, I'll put a stick welder on it, turn them on for a little bit, get them bubbling, and then let them sit for a bit, and then refurbish them. Let them sit overnight on a trickle charger, and they're good to go. And I have a battery out there that's 7 years old that's in my Dart right now. Mm-hmm. So it works good. Oh yeah, right there it says Uncle Tony uses an arc welder. Yeah.
The stick welder. In fact, his stick welder experiment battery is in my riding mower right now.
Yeah. So I did that way back. That was something that was back in the 90s. You used to be able to go down to Craig, and it was in San Diego. And then I worked at Chief, and they would have these big banks of batteries, and you would just hook them up and then just let them sit there and bubble.
Yeah, Danny Boyd, he's always disappointed. Well, you missed Dallas, Danny Boyd. Dallas was here. We were talking about PRI.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might take a life-size cutout of you and put on the floor at PRI. You never know. Anybody have any more questions for the professor? This is a bonus. Normally, you guys don't get access to him except on Wednesday.
Yeah, he came and sat in on Wednesday. Tonight what I was going to do is part of my job is being an engineer is I get to test things. So tonight was going to be I can't really tell you what I was going to be testing, but I was going to be taking one of our test vehicles down to the track, and I was going to be getting paid to beat on a car and do lap after lap after lap. But we have weather coming in, so they canceled the racing tonight and tomorrow. So that's why I'm free today. So yeah, but that's what I was going to be doing is drag racing all weekend.
Can't beat that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I like the ice drag racing where they put the studs on, and that's interesting. That'd be fun to try.
I was a pretty avid motocross racer and desert racer pretty much my whole life. In fact, I still have this thing that I want to go out and do it, but I've always wanted to race on the ice. That looks like it's so much fun because I like the supermoto. In San Diego, I used to have a KX500 that had supermoto wheels on it, and it was There's no way to beat that thing in those tight, twisty turns out there in San Diego. And looking at those guys that run on those ice where they're laid over like this and they're just turned, that looks awesome.
Yeah.
Looks awesome.
So Dust Devil Garage has got a question for you there. Would one of those new Edelbrock carbs work on a daily driver, or are they more race only? I believe Brian's talking about that 4150 Edelbrock deal.
Yeah, no, that thing actually, that's actually part of the testing that we did with it, is that why that carb is so unique is that you can, imagine it, a $3,000 billet carburetor that you can take off of a race car. We had it on a dyno, and we took it off. It made 800 horsepower. We literally took it off and dropped it on a Suburban, Chevy Suburban had a 350 on it. We fired it up. All we had to do was touch the idle just to bring the idle down, and we drove it like that for a week, and it still was right at 13.5, 13.8 as far as driving around, 12.8 as far as wide open. So it's completely, it's universal for everything. In fact, it was so universal it actually blew my mind. I couldn't believe that a carburetor could just come right off of one and go right onto the other.
I have a question for you that I'm curious
Sure.
about on those, and that is, I know that Andy Wood does this. The carburetors I have this restrictions in that intermediate circuit to keep them from dumping fuel under a really, really light amount of throttle opening.
Yes.
And that's something that a lot of cars have a problem with, because face it, when you make a lot of horsepower, you drive with just barely touching the pedal.
That's correct.
That intermediate circuit will just puke fuel in there and drown it when it doesn't need all that. So Andy would jet these things down to really restrict that orifice size in the intermediate circuit. How do these new Edelbrock, I call them Hollybrocks or that's 4150 Edelbrock. What, I don't know what we're gonna wind up calling them yet, right? Because it's still kind of new.
Yeah.
But what do those have in the way of that?
They actually have jets for those. They're
jetted now.
Yes, they're jetted, and they actually have 2 high-speed jets on them too. So there's 4 air bleeds on
Excellent.
that. So, yeah. So and it's an amazing. I was actually wrong a few weeks ago. I said it had 2 intermediate circuits. It doesn't. It has an idle circuit. It has an intermediate circuit and 2 high speeds.
Okay.
And everything is jetted. So there is. I can't remember how many jets off the top of my head, but there's an infinite amount of jets on it. But they all the circuits talk to each other. So it's not just like you can't go way out in left field and make the wrong adjustment on it. It will always be pretty set up. It is. I mean, obviously, you change the, a big, you go from like say an 84 to like a 90, it's going to be a problem. But as far as your air bleeds, just the fine tuning the air bleeds, man, it's amazingly easy. And there's going to be it's a pretty comprehensive setup on how to do it. It's really simple.
Well, here's a good one. Let's just put our heads together on this one. Street Fox 347 says my 5-speed, that's in a Fox Mustang. What would that be in that? Like a
T5?
I was gonna say a T5.
Yeah.
Leaking fluid around the bell housing. He thinks it's the input seals that easy to replace. Is that like a top loader where it has that bearing retainer that bolts on the front, and it just seals in the back of that?
Yeah, it's got this slide on, so it's a hydraulic clutch on that, and those come out. I believe if I'm thinking of it correctly, I believe it's got 4 bolts for that to come off.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's pretty easy to change that, but you have to take it out. I believe so.
Right, but I'm just wondering, because I know on some of these cars they have the input seal, and it's a suitcase style, and you can't get to it unless you take the entire transmission apart to get to the input. But I'm thinking on his, it's like a top loader Ford still, and it has that bolt-on bearing retainer, that input bearing retainer, and it just bolts on, and that's just 4 bolts, and you can change it.
I believe so.
So yeah, I think he's lucky on that regard. If you got to put an input seal in something like a Hyundai Excel, that's one of the most miserable jobs on earth. You have to take that entire transmission apart just to get to that seal.
That's correct.
I know that I have looked at one in the junkyard before, and I saw oil come out of it. And I said, nope, that just right there, because I knew it had completely come apart. He said it's an 86. It's not hydraulic. That's even easier. Yeah, that's 4 bolts to take a transmission out, 4 bolts to take the input retainer off.
Yep,
And
exactly.
while you're at it, see if you got any slop in the input shaft if it needs that bearing while you're at it, because that could
Yeah.
be why your seal is bad.
Yeah, so that's a super simple one. That's easy. That's a Friday afternoon.
I had a shop one time years ago want me to. They were planning on having to rebuild some manual transmission out of a GMC truck.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we don't know what's wrong with it. I go to pick it up out of the floor and put it on the bench. I sit on the bench. I said, well, I know what's wrong with it. They said, how you know what's wrong with it? All you did was pick it up off the floor and put it on the bench. I said, well, when I picked it up, I could feel the input shaft on it move, just crunch. I was like, the input bearing is bad. They said, oh, well, sure enough, that's what it was doing, is when you pushed the clutch, it would make all this noise like marbles in the coffee can. I said, yeah, that's why. The input bearing's trash.
Yeah.
We put an input bearing in it, and he was thrilled. He didn't have to get into the transmission at all.
I've rebuilt a few.
And 4 bolts.
I rebuilt a few manual transmissions, the a.a. I've done a few of those, the big cast iron ones.
Yeah.
And the needle bearings that you have to put in there. And I made a plug. I actually took a socket and then put electrical tape around it, so when I would press the one shaft in, it would hold the bearings in.
Nice.
Yeah, that's how I went through that. Yeah.
Yeah, that roller bearing is getting that counter shaft in the 833 is an exercise in patience.
Yes, it is.
I would always grease them, and you're feeling that thing down real carefully, and
then you just feel the one come out.
Yeah, you would think you've got it in there, and then it lacks that much of going. Like, no, roller sideways.
That's right.
At least it won't let you get it in all the way with a roller sideways, because that would be a complete disaster.
Yeah.
Here's a question for Professor P. Does anyone make an aftermarket shifter for an 833, like a Hurst, like a vertical gate?
Honestly, on that one, I don't have an answer for that, because
I don't know.
I don't know. I do know that I used to have an old V-gate shifter for one, and then I have a Ford top loader now that I have out there, but I really don't know. There's probably someone in here that would actually know the answer to that better than me, but I really couldn't tell you on that one.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. Those are great shifters, though, those Hurst vertical gates.
Yes.
And Mr. Gasket vertical gate, which you didn't see as many of those, but they did make them with the Mr. Gasket brand.
Yeah, I have one for a top loader, and it still has the little handle that you got to pull up to get it in reverse. Yeah, that thing's awesome.
Oh, they're nice. They're nice. Really crisp too.
Yeah, what I did is I took mine apart and put in, because it was all worn out and sloppy for the rods. I put in Heim joints in it. Man, it didn't make it much better.
Oh yeah. Brian Beeler says vertical gate made one for, or V gate made one for 833. Well, there you go.
There you go. Yep.
He knows things. Beeler knows things.
That's
he does a roundup show where he'll look at things like a marketplace and Craigslist and stuff, and he'll do it by groups of car.
Mm-hmm.
So 1 week it'll be like 60s A bodies, and then 1 week it'll be GM this. And then 1 week it might be trucks, and it's kind of neat. He goes through and reviews this stuff for sale. To me, I would rather watch what he does than watch like a celebrity auction for cars or something. I think it's a lot of fun what he does.
What's his channel name?
It's Brian Beeler. That is the channel.
Oh,
Brian
that's his channel. Okay.
Yeah, and he'll just do reviews of stuff for sale. Like I know one time he did 68 and 9 Super B and Roadrunner, and he just did all. And he'll just have a bunch of tabs at the top, and he premieres these things, and he'll just go through one at a time and talk about this car and what they're asking for it, his thoughts and opinions, and go to the next one. It's kind of fun. Oh, I enjoy what he does.
I got him up here. I'm going to subscribe to him. So there he is.
Yeah.
Subscriber. Perfect.
Yeah, it's a neat little niche of his. Yeah, Big Belly's already wanting to buy that shifter. There you go. He has a collection of 64 Comets.
Wow.
There you go.
You know that if my wife wasn't into Mopars, we used to, a neighbor down the street had a 64 Comet, and she really likes that grandma car look, so that would be her car. It'd be a 64 Comet.
Yeah, and Patrick here is a good point. Passion Performance sells refurbished shifters. They do. Yeah. They are 833 specialists.
Yeah, I forgot about them. That's right. Passion Performance. They're the ones that does that Passion 5-speed, right?
I believe they do.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, Brian, if you search Brian Beeler, you'll get him. I believe he's the only one that I've seen on YouTube. He'll come right up. He's got over 1,000 subscribers. He's easy to find on the search. You see his name, Brian Beeler.
It's actually 3,000 and 4,000 subscribers.
Yeah, yeah. I remember I just knew he was. I remember when he got his 1,000, but he's been surging since.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah. Danny Boyd found a Pro 50 he got from a pull apart for $5. Wow.
Wow.
That's a score. That's a good shifter too. Those are really nice and clean. That Devil wants to know if you've been to the Indy Swap Meet. I assume he means the Mopar Indy Swap Meet.
No, honestly, I've never done anything on this side of the Mississippi. Honestly, I've only been West Coast. I've done Drag Week and PRI out here, and that's it. And nothing else. So I've only been out here for 2 years, so I'm trying to do as much as I can.
Huh.
So no, I haven't. I'm going to try to get to all of them though. Now that I have a set of kids, twins that are like 7, but now they're going to be 8 next year. So that way I can get out a little bit more and start doing some stuff. So yeah.
I've never been to the Indy Swap Meet, so maybe we'll have to make that road trip so we can bother he and Jed and the YouTubers who go to it.
That sounds awesome.
Dan says here's the catch for $5. The lever and the handle were gone. Well, okay, but that's still a good score.
Yeah. I mean, that's simple. As far as I'm a machinist, I mean, that's easy. I can make that in afternoon.
So you say you where did you get your machinist training? So that's an interesting thing. So you're an engineer for TCI, but what is your classical training and how did you land into that position?
Actually, when I went to school for, I was actually an automotive mechanic, and then I went to school for a machinist. I went to basically like a what do they call them now? It's like a trade,
Right.
where you after school.
Like a Votech.
Yeah, saying California called it something else, right? And I went and did that, and then after that, I decided to go back to school. I was playing music. I was a drummer for a while, and then the wife, after we'd been married about 10 years, we were just kind of like, we wanted to settle down, and on and off, I had a friend who owned a transmission shop in Poway. It was called Poway Transmission. Eldon was his name, Eldon Dunn. And so then I used to go in there and rebuild transmissions, to do R&Rs there for him. And then I started going back to school. And so I went to school I went to Grossmont and then to San Diego State, SDSU.
Okay.
And so that's basically how I did it. And then I was working at another company in San Diego, and I was working at Crowder over there. And then it was time for me and the wife to leave. San Diego is a great place to be if you don't have kids.
Yeah.
As soon as you have kids and you want to have a little bit of control of what they learn in school, without being political, it was time for us to go.
Yeah.
So we started branching out, and then I got the phone call from Edelbrock, and that was actually with Comp, and that was right at the time where the Edelbrock group was merging. So Edelbrock and TCI, and since I had transmission experience, it was just a natural fit, that I went into the TCI. Now, I'll be honest with you, compared to some of the guys that work for TCI, they know so much about transmissions. I rely a lot on them because they know all the ins and outs, all the part numbers. I'm just a stupid engineer, let's put it that way. They give me an idea, a thought process, and then I run with it, essentially. And that's basically how I do it.
Okay. So when you say that, so they're saying, I'm just trying to think of a scenario. They say, this transmission needs to be able to do this to work better. Is that where they sick you on it, or where do you pick up in that process?
Without revealing too much.
Sure. Oh no, you do what you need to do.
But there are, obviously there is, older transmissions are getting harder to find. We'll make it as simple as possible.
Sure.
So there has to be something different. That's basically what I'm working on.
Okay.
That's as simple as it can be, because it's just, there has to be a future, because let's face it, turbo 350s are eventually going to run out. They stopped making them X many years ago.
And they'll run out after everything else.
That's correct. And then, then you have the Buick Olds Pontiac, the BLP 350s. Then you have, the 904 727s, and it moves downhill from there. Eventually there's going to be, an expiration date on all those transmissions.
Yeah.
So there has to be something new and innovative coming up.
Okay. That's interesting. I mean, you just design stuff, and you sit at a screen and use things like CAD and design programs, I'd imagine.
Yes, but but not just that only, because part of the deal is that I didn't want to just sit behind the screen. 50% of that is designing, but then also too, you get your hands on. So you get to go out and you get to test the products, because you get to do, you get to sit in the car, you get to go and you get the test plan, and you get to beat on it, and you get to have some fun. You know what I mean? That's the whole point,
Nice.
And so it's an awesome job. I couldn't be any happier. I mean, it is the absolute dream job for a person who's a car guy, because you get to design something, you get to break it, you get to reinforce, you get to do it again, you get to break it, and then you're like, wow, I can't break it. No one else here can break it. It's awesome.
Well, I got to tell you, one thing that is great is, we get to talk with you and interface with you a little bit, and you are a real car guy, because there are a lot of places we deal with in the automotive space where the people we deal with, we wonder, are you even a car guy?
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than, and of course, parts stores are the easiest example of this to give.
Mm-hmm.
We go to parts stores and we buy replacement parts from people who we're convinced are not even car people.
That's correct.
It's like, this is better than working here or there. This is better than working at Starbucks or whatnot. But it's good to get to see, that there really are real car people there where you work. We still have people who are interested and have that common interest that we do, designing our stuff.
Yep.
That's really important.
And that's the thing about it too, is that when I flew out here for my interview was like, let's just say on a Friday at 8:00 or whatever, 9:00. I got there a little early, and I drove through the parking lot to see what was driving what kind of cars were there. And there was awesome cars there. And then I also drove around back, and I'm looking for burnout marks, and there were burnout marks everywhere.
Nice.
So I was just like, this is heaven. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And they are really car people. They are absolutely legitimate car people. In fact, the new facility in Olive Branch, they have 4 parking spots in the front, right in front of the Edelbrock headquarters there. That is for older car parking only, for employees. So when you drive your classic car, it sits front and center out in front of the building, right out front. So it's awesome.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. They're rewarding people for driving their stuff.
Yep.
To me, it's a lifestyle. I mean,
100%.
Yeah. I mean, if you go to Dallas's house, he has one vehicle made in the last 30 years.
Yep.
His wife's Daily is the only vehicle he has made in the last 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas lives the lifestyle.
Yep.
He's for real. And I tell him his stuff is too modern because it has things like, sensors on it. So
it's funny because we have 2. And the only reason being is because I'm still looking for that 65, 67 Dodge truck, the crew cab.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take the body off and put my diesel truck underneath it. So my 2004. Otherwise, it would just be the wife's car. But I have a 66 Dodge Dart, which is my drag car. I have a 68 Dart, which is going to be my road race car, and my hot street car, stick shift. Obviously, you guys know the Lizard King, which is my 69 Mordor slant 6, and the wife has got a 69 Plymouth Valiant Mordor, also a slant 6. And in San Diego, those were our daily drivers. We had those 2 old cars, and I had my Dodge truck. So we had really nothing that was made after 2005. Everything was 1960s.
Patrick here wants to know if Edelbrock needs a test driver, and I got to say that Patrick will find out if their stuff is breakable. That guy can break parts just from looking at them.
Well, there is many engineers at the place that have very large feet, and we break it just fine. So, and we have plenty of test drivers, because that's one of the bitching caveats, is that you get to test drive your own stuff and break your own stuff if you
Great.
can. Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
It's a question from Dust Devil, who works as a machinist, by the way.
Oh,
He said
awesome.
he'd like to work for Edelbrock. Can you say what brand CNC machines they use?
Yes, they have a Mazax. Oh, I don't know all the names of them. I really don't. But they literally had to come in on rail cars when they moved all the. You know what? I will find out, and I'll let you know on Wednesday, because I have it in my head, but I just had a brain fart. I really don't. I can't remember, but I do know Mazak. There's another one, but they're 2-story tall, and they're tombstone style for the manifolds. And when they were moved over here, they came in on tractor trailer trucks and rail cars. It's the only way they could get them here when they moved them all. But yes, oh yeah, Haas, Fidel, yeah. Well, the Fidels are mostly are going to be the 40, 40, and 20, the small ones. But the and the Haas are really small too. But I can tell you that Mazak is just massive. It actually, we have you actually have to go upstairs, up like a flight of stairs, and then there's a you know like a runway, and there's like 6 machines that come off of that. So it's pretty. I'll take a video of it one time and I'll put it up there. I'll show that.
Here, okay, I got to do this. This is
Sure.
Brian's car.
Nice.
It's
Nice.
like a real life Hot Wheels 74 Duster, I believe it is.
Yeah, yeah. That's like every single car in 1980s right there.
Yep. That's the idea, is the real life Hot Wheels.
Mm-hmm.
And it did not quite make it to No Name Nationals. I'm really hoping and assuming it will be there next year. But I put it up on a live with Steve Magnante, and Mags said it was cool. And Brian's like,
Cool.
yes, it's got the stamp of approval now.
Dude, I'm telling you, you got that every single car I see like that was every Saturday night race car in 1980s. That right there is every car in Southern California in the late 80s, early 90s was right there. You got your 4-inch shackle kit on your side pipes, and your scoop out the top. Oh yeah, flat black paint. Oh yeah, that's every single car I've ever seen.
That car fit right in like Corvette Summer or something.
Exactly. And you got your Dummkopf 3030 camshaft in there, you know what I mean? So.
Right. And speaking of that, so how much so I know you've heard of all of the ancient cam grinds and the ancient cam lingo and all of that.
Uh-huh.
How do you see the public kind of getting educated, or lack thereof, however you want to describe it, in terms of camshafts and what they're ordering, what they're seeking? Do you see the public starting to understand cams better?
They're understanding enough to be to make an educated guess and I use that educated guess because camshafts are basically it's fuzzy logic. It's but here's the thing though, is that there's so much more to a camshaft than you're just as far as numbers, because you're dealing with derivatives. Once you start getting into how things are actually, the velocity of things at different points, how is it affecting it at 50, how is it affecting it at 100? There's, as far as duration at 50, overlap, the very basics, I think it's awesome, because that way you can't just have some cam guy just hey, this is the cam that's going to be for you. They can actually ask, well, wait a second, that's on a 108 LSA, hey, that's going to make a lot of down torque, but then I'm not going to have anything on the top end. What about this? I have a 5,000 stall, so I don't care what happens at 4,000 RPM. I want everything up here. So I want something that's going to be on like a 112 or 114 and let's extend that exhaust out, so that way I can run this thing out the back door. Those 108 LSAs are great for when you have a street racer, but if this is just a dedicated drag racer, who cares what happens below 4,000? Let's just work on the 5,000 and up. So I think it's really, really awesome that people are actually learning about it. So people just can't be bullshitted anymore. Let's just put it that as bluntly as possible.
What if you could say that there's maybe, because you see this a lot, if there was one trend that you wish you could like one piece of education you could impart into the masses that would help them, say, shop for a cam better, one
Mm-hmm.
thing, what would it be?
Ignore LSA until after the duration at 50 on the intake is going to set where the power is going to start. That's going to be basically your setting of your camshaft. The duration at 50 for the exhaust is going to be basically set and tied to your LSA, basically how much overlap window. Don't look at a 108 is going to do this or a 114 is going to do this. It's all about the overlap window between the duration of 50 on the intake and the duration of 50 on the exhaust, and how much overlap there is, and that's where the LSA sets. I always hate to hear when people say, "Oh, you got a 106, that thing must really talk." I have a 106 LSA in my slant 6 dart, but it's on a 117. It's on a 217 duration of 50, so it's got a really small overlap window.
The triangle of overlap is pretty small.
Exactly. So, and it's installed on a 102 ICL. So everything happens really fast, and because I don't care what happens after 5,000 because I never rev it past that.
Right.
So, don't get stuck on that. That's the one thing is just look at the overlap triangle, and that's what you're looking at as far as LSA. That's the one thing.
Anybody watching not familiar with the term overlap triangle, imagine both lobes where.
Oh, he clipped out there. What he was saying is that imagine that both lobes are in a kind of like one's going like this, one's parabolic in this way, and where the center line goes, they'll either move closer or back. And basically what it is where this one comes down and this one comes down. The triangle is going to be where that overlap is happening, and the more time that happens, that's where you're going to have your boogity boogity, or the sound of what's going to be happening. And it's basically scavenging, and there's a lot of different things that go into that as far as how it's going to affect RPM. Once you start getting into your wave tuning, there's so much more on that. Oh, looks like I'm the only one here right now. So looks like I'm still in. So anyways, we can move on to now I don't have as much control of it as he has. So I'll try to go through some of these questions. See, I was thinking a roller cam just enough to know I got a cam and ponder. That's one eye cat. Yeah, I was thinking of roller cam just enough to know it's got a cam to ponder. Yeah. Hello, John, 2X Garage says, hello, John. Hello, Shane. Hello, everyone. Mostly old parts and rust. Rob, I've used junk and I used rust parts of them all. Sorry, I have to read through these one by one. I apologize because I don't have the pop-up for it. Let's move on down here. I'll try to go fast and have fun. Sometimes parts have to die. Oh, there he is. He's back.
I'm back on backup.
Awesome. I was just kind of going through and explaining to him what you freeze framed right in the middle of what the triangle was. So I just finished it for you.
Thanks. Perfect.
No problem. So go ahead. Let's hear your definition of it. Go for it.
No, all I was trying to do was explain if you could visualize those side profiles of the lobes. The peaks of them are going to be too close together for neither to intersect the other. So you're going to have an area between the two. And that area is where both valves are off the seat at the same time. And it's just an area. It's a product. So what Professor P is saying here, if you don't have a lot of duration, that triangle area is going to be smaller by nature, regardless of how close the lobes are together.
That's correct. Exactly. And I was also telling him, once you start getting into wave tuning, as far as port velocity, exhaust, that really plays into an account. When you're really dealing with engines that are trying to make the really finite power, we start wave tuning. You got first, second, third, fourth order wave tuning as far as through the exhaust, and how the wave goes back, hits the exhaust, and then comes back up through the exhaust, through the port, and actually hits the back of the carburetor. So you can actually tune with that also. I mean, it goes really deep. The rabbit hole goes deep.
Well, that's something that we studied in Vizard's class. We studied how, which wave you're actually on, which wave you're using. It could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 4, it could be 5.
That's right.
depending on the intake runner length. I don't
That's
think
right.
people realize that you're not actually burning that first charge. There's a sequence of them as they go in.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah, that's actually that's really deep, because that's actually what we start going into, as far as, we look at the camshaft and we start looking at head flow ratings,
Right.
and we look at runner length, and we look at how the runner comes down and in the exhaust, and how it bubbles out, as far as your velocity, where it gets down to the pocket, and then on your exhaust, where you have your step, and then where, each time you have a change, that's going to send a wave back. Each time you have a change in the exhaust, there's going to be a wave that comes back. So yes, that's awesome. That's good stuff. Because see, that's what I'm really glad about, is that people are actually learning that kind of stuff. So when we talk about this kind of stuff, people will understand it. It's not just like,
Right.
oh my God, what is this? It's
Well,
like,
it's relevant. And it
mhm,
is relevant. And it's something that amazes me is how much people will spend in some areas of their engine build.
yep,
And then they'll pick a camshaft that says, well, Summit or Jegs or whomever says this part number because it's this many RPM to this many RPM. I'm thinking, you're giving away 30, 40, 50 horsepower because of something that's just in this generic RPM range. You could do so much better without spending a dime more.
yep, it's true.
Two
Absolutely.
Hodge has a good question here. He's a doer. He says, I'm building a 302 Chevy out of a Vortec. Um, wow. So he's doing LT crank. He's doing a 302, a modern day 302, and running a
Okay.
new old stock Duntop 3030. He's a nostalgic guy.
That's awesome.
What mechanical cam lifters would you suggest? What mechanical lifters would you suggest for strength?
Mm, um, can we take a pass on this? Because it's something I can't answer online.
Okay, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
You can pass or play anything you want. This is not a game show with rules with $1 million.
Yeah. I do. There's what I would be looking for is Comp makes a really good mechanical lifter, but what you're really looking for is something that's going to be very well polished on the face. Um, I wouldn't just put in any type of lifter. So something that has a super polish, or even that is a lightweight, or even a billet lifter at that point. I've ran in my slant sixes billet lifters. I've run super polish. I've tried everything in my slant sixes, because they don't get the greatest oil. So as far as they only get spray oil coming from the crankshaft, and in fact on the rod there's a little tiny hole there where it actually squirts oil, and that's the only oil that the camshaft gets. So it's a really great test bed for lifters. So I've tested them all. So I would get something that would be as super polished as possible on the face, that has they have, man, I can answer this question and I can't, because I can only answer this probably in the next year. So
Okay, sure. So there's innovation afoot.
that is absolutely correct. Let's put it that way.
I'll say this, and again, I'm not advocating that he's right or wrong or anything. I'm just going to tell you something I saw last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Last weekend, I went to a machine shop. I had business reasons to be there, but I asked him, I said, what are you experiencing with cam and lifter break-in? There's a lot of people who've had some problems with that, etc. And what he said is that he bought a hardness tester, and he's checking surface hardness on those lifters. And now this is something you can opine on. This is just what he said, okay? But he says the spec on them on the lifters he was working with should be 75.
75 Rockwell?
That's what he's testing. And he said that a lot of his were coming up in the 60s, 72. The one that he had foul and wipe out was in the 50s.
Well, I've never seen anything that high personally. Most of the camshafts that we're going to be dealing with, okay, a billet camshaft, let's just call it a 6061, or a billet steel, copper core billet steel.
Right.
When that thing's heat treated and that thing is as hard as nails, that's only 62 Rockwell.
See, again, I don't know. This is what he's telling me.
Mm-hmm.
But he did a demo on a lifter for us.
Yep.
And he was just showing, what numbers he gets and what he looks for. And anyway, that's an experiment that he's doing on breaking them in.
Yeah.
So I'll see this guy again. I can ask him. I can do a video with him. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, please do, because that's, I work in the cam. I've worked in the cam
Hmm.
industry, and
Exactly.
yeah, and we especially on flat tappet cams, obviously they're going to be cast iron. We nitride them, and then we'll parkerize them, and then we nitride them, and they're usually hard as nails at that point. And they're going to be in the 60 Rockwell. But once you see, the thing is, if you get something that's too hard, then it's going to be brittle, and we've seen them crack above 65 and 67. Man, that's I personally, maybe is he on a Rockwell C? Is he using a Rockwell C, or is he using a?
I'm not familiar enough with it to give an honest answer. I just know that he had a machine there where he
Mhm.
would pull over and he would measure. He'd show us a scale and how he got his numbers. And this is just something he did as we were walking through. I'm thinking this would
Yeah,
be worth going back and doing a video with him.
you
Uh,
should.
he's been doing machine work since I know the 60s. He actually raced a pro stock car in 1970, the first year of pro stock.
Wow,
I don't know
that's
how
awesome.
competitive he was. I don't think very, to be honest with you, but
Hmm.
he was trying to make the field, and so
Yeah,
anyway, he raced back in the day. But it
well,
will
I
be
can tell you,
interesting to see what he does and why.
I've done a lot of when I was at my other place, I did a lot of people send in their camshafts and that would fail, and we would look at them. Most of the camshaft fails. Obviously, I understand that there's going to be, I did everything and I did this and I did that.
Mhm.
I noticed that there was a big trend when people started going to beehive lifters. Now, beehive lifters, or even conical style lifters,
Mhm.
because they don't stack like a regular lifter. They're great for rollers, but when you put them in a flat tappet, they have very low seat pressure. But when they go over the nose, they're very high in the
Hmm.
pressure. And also, too, there's no spring to take out the center. So when you would break in a camshaft with, like, say, a dual spring, you take the inner spring out, you take the dampener out, and you've got, what, say 60 on the seat, maybe 200 over the nose. You break it in, then you put it back together, and then you go. But when you're running a conical, you just don't have that ability. Also, too, I also would see, as far as startup, is that I would see a long crank period of startup, or when they put all the massage oils on it, and then when they were putting in their torque converters, they turned it over 4 or 5 times, and they wiped all that stuff off, and then they started back up, and you would absolutely see that. And then, as far as like taper on the camshafts, I do know that, a thou and a half of taper is what we're putting in. And then there's also the crown on the lifters, um, and just oils in general. They're just not as good. But I can tell you for a fact that we test at Comp in our Spintrons, all our camshafts. Some people say we're having failures. We've been testing that stuff, and we're putting them. We put 10 million cycles on these camshafts. 10 million cycles. That is a
Wow.
lot. And they're going, it's not just at a constant RPM. That's going from 3 to 7,500 and back down, 3 to 7,500. Then it goes down to 1,500 to 7,500 and back up. And we break it in just like you would a regular, engine. Obviously there's no pistons and rods. It's a mandrel, but it's still going through its cycle. And they get hot because you're cycling springs, and you're burning up. That oil is getting really warm, so it's actually more abusive than I think a regular engine, because there is no coolant going through it. So they do get very warm. So it's here. I personally have only had one cam failure break in my life, and it was my own fault. And I didn't want to take the springs out because it was on a Mopar, and I didn't have the tool to take the springs off. Plus, it was in a 66, so my master cylinder was in the way. So I just broke it
Right.
in, and I flattened 5
Ooh.
of them. So yes, I've done it. Everyone's done it. So now I made up a stand, and I just break them in outside, and then I put it back in. But as far as my slant sixes go, I'm running pretty decent spring pressure on that, because I'm beating on it, and I've got very aggressive cam profiles in there because I'm not RPMing it. And in fact, I'm running hydraulic profiles on a solid, and it's running right now. I think it's a 6 and 8 as far as the lash, and it's going to almost 500 thousandths lift on a slant six. and it's only at 217 on a 1.5 rock arm ratio. So that's super aggressive. So I never had a failure on the slant sixes. And what I've been doing is just breaking them correctly, taking the inner springs out. You have to do that. That's 90% of what I've been seeing. But I know I went on a little tangent. I'm sorry.
No, that's great. That's great info.
Yeah. But as far as the Rockwell, I would really look into that because and please keep me posted on that because
Sure. I'll
that,
ask.
that seems very, because even they're like 50, which is where induction hardened cams. Induction hardened is going to be slightly less dense, which is going to be like, say, a 58 Rockwell. These are these are roller lifters style, and those are going to be harder on average than the cast iron ones. And the cast iron ones are going to be hardened from the factory, but then you parkerize them and you can cut on them, but it just seems really high. I don't know. I could be absolutely flat out wrong on that, and if I am, I'll admit it. But I just never seen 71.
Well, the number he put on the scale was 72.
72.
But
yeah.
I would love to do a video
Yes.
of what he's doing because he's done it a long time. He does some interesting stuff. So
Yeah.
So curious too, and
Sure.
we're going to wind this down. If you guys have any other questions for Professor P, go ahead, post them up. Because we're winding down. But I'm sure you've seen a lot of gimmicky things come and go over the years.
Yes.
What would be maybe you can pick 1, 2, 3 or something of your favorite ridiculous gimmicky things that should never have been invented, automotive nonsense?
Okay, there's one. Here's the best one. And my father-in-law fell for this. It's the little tablets that you used to put in the gas. Remember those? It was a tablet. You threw it in the gas, and it was supposed to increase the mileage by 15% by
That sounds like a
these.
J.C. Whitney thing.
It was ridiculous. This was 2005, 2006, and I was just like, "Are you kidding me?" The next one, the Tornado. Remember that one?
Oh yeah, I remember the Tornado well.
Yeah, the Tornado.
Yeah.
That was terrible. And then the longest going one, and still to this day we make jokes about it, but Slick 50. Man. Slick 50. All it was synthetic oil with PTFE Teflon suspended in oil. Do you know how hot you have to get PTFE to adhere to metal? I mean, it's hot. There's no way you're going to be able to do that while suspended in oil.
Well, I guess the idea is that you have this huge catastrophic failure when you use it. I don't know. I guess that's the theory.
Yeah. The only benefits you got from it was the pure synthetic oil that you were putting in there, and then the floating particles were just there.
Now, was Slick 50 the stuff when they would do those torture test commercials when they drain all the oil out and they're running it on a stand with dirt in it? And
that was one of them.
Mixing cement with the crank, whatever else they did to those poor engines.
And they were slant sixes, by the way.
I didn't remember that because it's been like 20 years ago, probably that stuff was out there.
Pull them up on YouTube. They're there. They're slant sixes. And they would drain out the oil.
That's the only thing that would do that. Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right. Because, I used to watch those infomercials at night. And then as I got more experience in what they were, I was just like, dude, that's a slant six. It's going to run like that regardless,
You know what? I got to find one of those tornadoes. I've got to find one. We got to test it just for pure fun in 2022. Do a tornado test.
Yeah.
Big Belly's asking your thoughts on that 200 R4.
Okay, 204Rs. Yes. Okay. I do like the 204R. I've actually had one behind my slant six. Now, because I'm a Mopar guy, I have the GM shift differently than Chrysler's, flat out. And I grew up with the way the 904s and 727s shifted. 204R is an excellent transmission for something that you're going to have for 400 to 450 horsepower and less. And it's got a great gear split, better than the 700 because the 700's got that 306 first. This one's got the 277 or 274 first, whatever it is. And it's got a nice split with a really high overdrive. Was it 068, I believe is what it is. It's a great transmission if you're trying to put something in place of a turbo 350. I believe it bolts right in. There's no extra. You don't have to cut anything. You can just put the same drive shaft in. Everything's the same. So if that's what you're trying to do, it's an amazing transmission for that. I had one behind my Slant 6. It's a pretty efficient transmission. I just personally didn't like the way it shifted. I tried everything and it just wasn't my bag, baby. Let's put it that way. So it came out and I have an A500 that I'm going to put in behind the Slant 6.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Clint says that he has a Tornado on the shelf behind him. Clint's going to be at PRI. Maybe we need to get together and do a Tornado test. That might be fun. Now,
Yes.
You know who would test that, do really well test that is Dallas.
Yes.
He's the one checking his mileage to the 10th on all these long trips.
Uh-huh.
He would be the Tornado testing guy.
I've tried it, man. I bought one. I had an 87 Dodge D50 and it had that Mikuni carburetor on it, right? And I bought one of those things and I put it right on there and it actually made my mileage go down. So maybe it was just my setup, but who knows?
Who needs good head porting when you have a Tornado?
Right?
I mean, I think those things were good for like 10 pounds of boost at the commercial set or something close.
This is ridiculous. Yeah. Those were my favorite things. But there's also one here. Someone was talking about split fires. Now, here's the thing is that now split fires were actually, plugs were actually really good in the motocross realm. I had 2 strokes and they would always foul plugs, especially before, like when you're running Kawasaki's or 32-1. And before you had like really synthetic stuff, I had like Maxima M. I used to use the split fires because they would foul way less than the other ones, and like see your NGKs. So that's the one gimmick that seemed to work. Now split fires work awesome in smaller engines. When I put them in a car, I didn't notice any difference at all.
Well, I mean, the spark can only jump in one place at one time anyway.
That's correct.
And so
I think I think why the split fire worked in those is because you had 2 electrodes. So when one fouled, the other one would work.
That's exactly right.
So
that's
exactly
right.
I think that's why it worked. Remember the old Yamahas used to have 2 plugs in the head at the same time. So when one fouled, you just take the spark plug wire off, put it to the other one, and start going again.
Right. Sure. Well, I tell you what, this could be a topic all of its own. I think it would be a barrel of fun. Crazy automotive sorcery over the last 50 years. Maybe I'll do that. I'll dredge up some old J.C. Whitney catalogs and some of this stuff, and maybe we can do a live just on automotive sorcery of the last century.
Dude, that would be awesome. I've tried it all, man. I've been testing stuff since the 1990s, man. I've just been going with it because I was like, hey, let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens, But yeah. That's awesome. But yeah,
let's do it. Let's do an upcoming live.
Okay.
And we'll do an upcoming live with Professor P, automotive sorcery.
That's right.
So if any of you guys have seen any of this, any of the crazy stuff, doesn't matter what it is, anything car related, okay? If it was designed for power or mileage or something, and it was one of these wacky things that came and went, shoot me an email, john@PrincetonDragway.com. It's on my channel. Shoot me an email with it, and maybe we can research it. We can evaluate it. Maybe we can even find an example of it. I think that'd be a fun live to do.
Absolutely. That would be awesome. That'd be good.
All right, guys, we're past our time, but we're having a lot of fun. The time flew by. I want to thank all the mods, Joe, Andy, Blake, Fubar Buzz, Ari, Buff. Thank you guys. Keep it running good. Want to obviously thank our guest. Thank Professor P. Thank Dallas. And all you guys in the chat, and we'll see you guys again soon.
Yeah, thanks. And if there was a question that we didn't get to, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. Once again, that's slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. I try to get through those on the weekends. During the week, I'm a little busy because PRI, obviously, and SEMA is really busy right now. But slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. Send it over there, and I'll get to it when I can.
Sounds excellent. Thank you, guys.
Y'all take care. Have a good night. Bye.